Welcome, everybody. We're the Aussie group. It is
I don't
8
think we've got
a.m.
here though.
No?
One person's here. I can see.
Okay.
Oh yes, 5.
Shows me that 5, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 8 a.m. here, and it's the middle of winter, so we're having a pajama party. Yay! So, you guys, we'll start with you, Cathy. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Cathy. I own Cathy's Creations. I have been a huge hermit crab enthusiast for the past 2 years, and I've absolutely loved every single part of it. There's so much to learn and so much, so much to kind of learn. I'm also excited to be here and be with you guys and talk more about what we do and how different it is from America to Australia. And I've run Cathy's Creations for about 2 years now, and have had hermit crabs for about 3 years. And I've loved every step of the way of having them. So that's me.
Awesome. Okay, Kiara.
I'm Kiara. I am fairly new still to hermit crabs. I just had an extra tank laying around the house, and I was like, what can I put in this? And hermit crabs, and then I started researching on YouTube and joined the American Facebook groups, and they sent me to Sue's Facebook group. Joined that, and then that's been it really. I just researched and got them, and now I've got 4 tanks and run a rescue, and I'm also really excited to be here. This is an amazing opportunity.
Awesome. All right, Sue.
A lot of you probably know me. I have been keeping crabs for 14 years. I have, in that tank behind me, I have a captive bred who is 7.5 years old. He has fathered numerous babies. Unfortunately, my hometown had a flood, and at the same time, because I was busy doing rescue stuff for the flood, my baby tank flooded as well. And so I lost all my second generation captive bred babies in 2022. They were about 14 months old at the time. But hopefully, again this year, we will get some more.
I'm Corina. I'm new to crab breeding. It all happened by accident. And I'm here to talk about crabs and get to know everybody. And I'm also very excited to be here, and thank you guys so much for coming and joining me today. It's really cool of you. And I think we're going to start it off with crab care in Australia and the differences. So I guess the main difference that I noticed straight away is that our substrate is got a different mix to it. They put some crushed up oyster shells and is it worm castings in the sub in the US, and we just have sand and the core peat. But what other things have you guys noticed that's different?
The ratio to substrate is different. Theirs is 5-1, where we're 8-1.
Mm-hmm.
I think temp's a bit lower as well there. I think it's like something like 23 to 27 or something, and we're 26 to 32.
Yeah.
The ratio is mainly due to the natural habitat of the Verabilis, which is far more sandy and coral type sand, and there is very, very little vegetation because the coastal areas are basically desert for many miles inland, and so there isn't anywhere near as much leaf litter available, so therefore they don't need as high a percentage of the coir peat.
And the humidity as well. Do we have it slightly higher as well? Is that correct, Sue?
No, I think it's about the same.
About the same?
Humidity. I don't actually recall what the American folk usually use. If somebody who is here would like to type in the chat, that would be good. We try to keep it at 80, and I think the Americans have 80 Fahrenheit and 80 humidity.
That's what I've read. Yeah, they kind of aim to keep
it as well. But our babies do like it slightly more humid.
Yeah, which is a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
And what about the behaviours and the size? I guess the crabs, the purple pinchers, grow a lot bigger than our crabs too.
They can grow up to the size of the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That may just be, though, that we haven't had crabs for as long as a lot of the people in the States, so ours haven't got as big. I know Monster is in a 4.6 centimetre opening shell, and he's only 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's quite... The little puzzle balls that came in the CrabCon swag, Monster is bigger than those.
Wow.
Any of you who got the CrabCon swag or who buy the little puzzle balls that you can take apart and put food in, Monster is actually bigger than those. Because I had one in the tank. I put one in the tank and Monster happened to be beside it at some stage or other. I thought, oh, my goodness. Right. And I took a photo. So I think our Zoe and Mega are definitely bigger, apparently, and I mean, I find the Zoe really little, but apparently big compared to the other one. So,
and it's mind blowing when you think of how many they're counting as well when they're so small. I find it hard to count them already. If they were smaller, that would be.
So I had 1,800 at one stage because I had 2 spawns.
Yeah.
Counting them, I was sort of going, but yeah.
And so, what about the popularity of hermit crabs in Australia? Have you guys noticed an increase over the last few years? Because I certainly have.
You
would know it more so than anyone else, Sue.
Well, we've had a lot of people joining groups, and we've now got, I think, between all the groups in Australia, and yes, there would be some that are like me who are on multiple groups, but I think we've probably got about 4,000 keepers who are known because they're on groups. Considering our much smaller population than US and Europe and whatever, that's not a bad percentage, I don't think.
Yeah, sure. If there's anyone watching, say hello and send in your questions as much as you like.
I'm keeping an eye on the chat and nobody's typed in.
Yeah. So any other differences you guys have noticed between Aussie and the US?
Well, they've got different, species there as well. So you've got the purple pinchers and the Ecuadorians. That's the two I've heard of, and you always see, people posting, what species is my crab? And I think Ecuadorians have slightly different care as well to the purple pinchers. But to my understanding, they can be housed together as well, I think.
Well, I think some people have noticed interbreeding happening.
Oh, wow.
Whether the babies are actually viable or not, I haven't heard, but they have seen interaction between species which could possibly end up with babies. Hi, Hunter.
Hi, Hunter.
Hi.
Hey.
We have a friend.
Hunter's has a goal for crab claws in the lives. So we have to finish it off with some claws.
Yeah.
Ours actually have different shaped eyes as well, and it was interesting. I was at the talk by Dr. Tudge at stupid o'clock in Australia.
Yes, me too.
It's interesting. He was talking about the shape of the eyes impacting how they see, and one species has a much rounder eye, the other one has more elongated, and ours are sort of really oval, and that's the easiest way I find of telling quickly which species they are, because there's the eye shape is actually different, and I think that's that's my go-to. I look at the eyes first. Oh, that looks like a this, or oh, that looks like a that. But because we have such little experience personally with any species other than Variabilis, we're not experts on them by any way, shape, or form.
No. We're learning as we go. Hunter asks, what's some of the most challenging things with crab keeping in Australia?
I think for me, the lack of knowledge that everyone says the same thing to me. Oh, I used to have hermit crabs when I was little, and they all died within the first week, and it breaks my heart. Everyone, there's not a lot of people know about it.
Yeah. For me, it was the lack of YouTube videos dedicated towards, Aussies, because I am a big researcher. Every animal I get, I research. So the first thing I did was hop on YouTube, and I found Crab Central Station. And I was like, oh, cool, this is, but I didn't really think about the difference in species and the different care as well. So I was lucky that I found Sue's group. But there's just, we're very behind the US and other places in the world as well. I think that was my biggest thing.
I think also Australians were able to breed hermit crabs in captivity before the American people, because I know I helped Mary get started.
Oh, wow.
But I think there are so few of us compared to in the States. There's only we've got a handful of breeders here, whereas in the States they've got a couple of dozen at least. And our vast distances and lack of population, therefore lack of transport from place to place, makes a lot of things difficult.
Yeah, because in Australia we all live on the very edges of the country, and the centre is pretty empty. So unlike the USA, unlike the USA,
even getting stuff from Brisbane, which is my closest capital city, to me, which is an hour and a half, 2 hour drive, to get anything delivered from Brisbane takes multiple days. And to get it from anywhere else, it's ridiculous. And so to get stuff across to Western Australia often takes a week at least, if it even arrives. And I think somebody was saying that Tasmania, you can't import, even from other Australian states, you can't import a lot of animal type products.
Yeah.
So that makes it, they've got to source stuff from only Tasmania.
Yeah.
So I think vast instances, lack of population, lack of transport infrastructure make getting things to places difficult.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think that answers that question. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions that they would like to put in the comments?
Yes, please. We're happy.
Yeah,
Got
we're
more
happy.
questions, Hunter. Ask.
Yeah.
Don't be shy, folks.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
As you can see, we all only have one head.
Yeah.
Just because we come from
I
the
think
other half of the planet doesn't mean we're any different.
Okay.
I do
Okay.
have another answer to Hunter's question. I think the lack of Hermit businesses here as well. You know, in the States, there is so many. And I know that LHCOS, they really want, you know, all of their approved stores to get along. And, you know, everyone support each other. Like, there's so much room for so many businesses. And here, you know, there's you, Cathy, and a couple others. But, yeah, I feel like there's definitely room for more. Absolutely.
There is, but
Sure.
again, because we've got less people, there's sort of less demand as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's sort of a two-edged sword, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's more and more every day. And
Yes.
I've seen an increase in bigger tanks as well. Less smaller hobby tanks, more like people are getting into the crab habitat building.
Yes.
So
Some people.
Yeah, I have big hopes and dreams that because everyone is, that there'll be a lot more babies this year. Yeah. Yeah, but that has lasted so long with the crack. Doing well.
I know. It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's a crack on the front there and basically the same shape on this end as well.
Was that from the heat? Oh, that's another thing I've struggled with.
That was a rogue heat mat, I think, because heat mat was on the end and I heard this crack and I went, what the hell? And then about 3 days later, I was looking in the tank and going, oh, maybe that's what the crack was. And so I took the heat mat off, but then because it was winter, it got too cold. So I actually put the heat mat exactly here. And about a week later, crack, crack, crack. I was just going to replace the end and keep the tank, but I can't really replace the end and the front. So I've got a new tank sitting in my lounge room. Been there for nearly 2 years, and it's still empty.
It's a big job.
Difference in humidity, Penny, is not anything at all. We use the 80-80 as well, except we call it 28-80. But we don't not concerned if it gets a little bit higher than that, because it does get to 40 odd degrees Celsius.
Yeah, hot and
habitats up in the far northwest of Queensland and the northwest of Western Australia and the eastern part of Queensland. Sorry about that. So it does get quite hot, but because it's tropical, it's humid as well, so that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Jill asked what first interest is in crabbing.
I got crabs because I was a primary school teacher. I got crabs as class pets, and then I ended up without a classroom because we dropped in class sizes, and so the crabs came home, and then I retired, and they stayed at home.
Did you still have them, the same ones, or you've just got new ones over time?
No, none of the ones I've got now are the originals. But They started life in very poor conditions. They started life in a stick insect enclosure, which had no heating, no sub, and it had a wire top, and they were poked and prodded with my 8 and 9-year-old kids in the classroom. Yeah, so they started in really bad conditions, and then I learned a bit more and we changed a few bits and pieces. So they had a hard start, but Monster's actually the crab I've had for the longest now, and he's 7.5 years old. And the others may well be
Very
old,
popular.
but I have rehomed them from various locations.
For me, look, Jill said she also got them for a classroom, but they haven't made it there yet. How do you deal with the fact that they are nocturnal and they don't move during the day? Mine are quite active during the day. Sometimes. I mean, depends. But what about you guys?
Yeah, I think you can actually see one of mine, the little white dot on that coconut right there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since I've redid their tank during the week, they've been really exploring all week, all times of the day. So I've actually been able to see them a lot more.
Yeah.
But with the babies, they're out all times of the day, but they're a little bit different.
Yeah.
So,
They're just crazy.
They are. They're crazy.
crabs.
So much fun.
But yeah, I started with crabs when I was a kid, I guess. I had some as a teenager, and then in my 20s I had them again. And more recently, I guess 2020, I went to the local pub on Australia Day to show my American family what it's all about. And they had hermit crab racing, and we came home with hermit crabs. And so it's just kind of snowballed from there.
That's crazy. Yeah, when I was trying to make a garden, I thought I could make a little mini paradise for hermit crabs, because I'm like, that's the only animal that's like so miniature, and like I can put soil and salt and fresh water, and I was like, oh, they need heat and humidity to survive. Okay, that's not gonna happen. So I got them anyway because I was so intrigued by them, and I realized there's a lot of misconception about it. Like at nearly every pet store that pretty much every pet store that I walked into, they couldn't tell me a lot. They didn't really know much about how to keep them, and there was a lot of misconception of how to actually care for them. So it was very different when I was jumping online and you see all the Facebook groups and they were like, actually, you're not supposed to do that. So I decided, well, I'm going to try and help them in any way I can. And that's when I started making their food. So I was like, should I help everyone else and give everyone else some of my food? And everyone's, commenting, saying, yes, please, we need food. And so that's how I started the small business. So, yeah. Do we have a question? No.
I've been answering questions sort of in
I did already answer what got me interested in crabbing, but I'll say it again for you, Jill. So I just had an extra 4-foot tank laying around. I got it for free off my Buy Nothing page. And I just thought, what can I put in this? And yeah, I thought hermit crabs, and the rest is history.
Yeah, there's something that you sort of start, and then once you start, you sort of can't stop.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I started with, a little tank, or other than the stick insect thing, which was quite big. I started with a little tank that I just got from, Kmart or somewhere. And yes, they had sort of yay much sub and whatever. But then I realised, that's not really big enough. So I bought a bigger one and then a bigger one. And now I've got 2 pots and my big one and my baby ones and a couple. And I only have a small house, so I've got nowhere else to put them.
Yeah, I remember when I first started out, I got like a small tank and I put like colored sand in it and like all these little miniature like obstacle courses and little things there. And I even put a plant in there at one point and they just kept eating the soil. I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh,
that's really interesting because I put you probably can't see, but that's a Tupperware container that's got dirt and moss that I just dragged off the out of the garden. And the crabs, since it went in, the crabs have actually been digging into the dirt. You know, and it's just ordinary garden soil. They've been digging in, it's sitting there, and
they dig into my plants as well. Yeah, because I put seedlings in there for them to eat, and they just love sitting in the dirt.
It's crazy.
Hello. Sue's very famous.
I don't know why.
We love you.
I make myself known, probably.
Yeah. You're a rock star to me. What's the most common mistake that a new person perhaps can make? All that misinformation.
I think, not doing your research. Yeah.
Yeah. But we are seeing the pet stores slowly make differences. And we have some members also working in pet stores that are trying to make a difference from the inside.
They are. They're doing a great job.
Yeah. Actually, forgot to mention that we're all from the Australian Hermit Crab Association. So, we are all working to stop that misconceptions.
I think a lot of people here also don't realize that hermit crabs need heat and humidity to survive because of their gills. I think they don't understand that, some people don't understand that they actually do have gills and they need that moisture in the air.
Yeah. So many people just see the pet store setups and they go, oh, great,
Yeah. And they spend so much money, on misinformed information. So really quite sad, actually.
Absolutely.
But that's probably, in my opinion, the most common mistake.
And that's what we're working to do. We're working to get the word out about correct care and the fact that whilst the pet shops are telling you X, Y, and Z, it may or may not be correct. So please research first. And as an admin on 2 of the groups in Australia, if I see an answer, why do you wanting to join, which is one of the questions, people saying, I'm thinking about getting them, I'm researching first. I go, beauty, you're in.
Yes.
That answer will get you in straight away, guys, if you're an Australian.
And that is so rare for somebody to research first. Kiara did that.
I was one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
You were probably one of the ones I let in straight away.
Yeah.
29 years.
Wow.
You could teach us, I think.
You're not alone in killing them due to lack of knowledge. I think that's happened to every single crab keeper in the whole entire world, if people were honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I know I've lost crabs due to poor decisions on my part.
I have as well. Yeah.
29 years ago, no, that you wouldn't have.
So we are half an hour in, so why don't we move on to breeding, and I'm going to get you to take it away, Sue, first before I talk about the bulbs.
Why me?
Because
You're the one that had the success this year.
Okay.
That's true.
So you tell us about your success and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Go on.
So,
Be brave.
so my crabs had babies. I woke up one morning and had a full tank of Zoe's and was not really sure what to do. But luckily, I had you guys to ask, and Sue as well. But I ended up doing things a little bit differently to what people normally do. So Sue has a nice chrysal, and a lot of people in the US do as well. And that's awesome. But I woke up with Zoe and no preparation. So what I had to do was sort of figure it out as I went. And what I came up with is what I call the poor girl method. So that is because I'm time poor. I was working full time, had no time to look after Zoe. I'm knowledge poor. I've never tested water in my life. And I obviously had no idea what to do. And like everybody in the world right now, cash poor. I couldn't just go out and buy a chrysal. They don't exist in the world, but in our world anyway. So yeah, I had to sort of make it up as I went, using the information that we did have available through Sue and the Happy Hermit, and obviously through Mary as well. So what I did is that I jumped onto Marketplace and I found the water testers secondhand. So that took care of that. I sent my husband to a pet store to try and find food. And then on my way home from work, I picked up this jar from Kmart. So big. So it's about 4 liters, I think, maybe about a gallon and a half. And so in that jar, I didn't have a heater to put into the water to keep it warm. So with this jar, I put all the Zoe in there. I did not count them. I was way too overwhelmed. And we got the sinking shrimp pellets as well, put those in. And after a few days, I was able to get the correct food that they needed, which was the marine snow. But yeah, sorry, where was I? I also reached out to Mary and Dr. Chris Tudge after re-listening to the Radiolab episode by Rachel Cusick, because that gave me a lot of information as well about what Mary did in the very beginning, and got me thinking about tides, ocean tides, and the water, the rolling waves, all that sort of stuff. So I was able to get some information out of Mary and Chris as well. And I also reached out to our local maritime museums and also to Dr. Valentine Theoport up in the Northern Territory. He is a biologist up there, and he gave me some information on diatoms, or microalgae is probably the best thing to feed them at this stage. So I went, sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I went from there after a few days of keeping them alive, keeping the bubbles going. I was able to get the proper food and all that sort of stuff, and once they turned mega, that's when everything goes crazy because they all start to eat each other.
That's when you need more than one jar.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And I think next year I will have a second jar for that reason, just to separate them so they don't all destroy each other, because that's what happened with my second lot of Zoe's. But anyway, yes, I was experimenting every day with my jar and changing the water out 3-4 times a day on average. And what I would do, which is a slightly different thing, is that I would bring the water down to about halfway and leave it there for half an hour. And this gave them a low tide morning and evening. And when I was pouring the water back in, I didn't hold back. I just poured it in, and it just spin them all up, and they would be rolling around like a wave. And I believe that is what helped them to shed a lot of their exo and to grow. I think they are a lot more tough than we realize. But something else that I noticed was late in the afternoons every day, they would be sitting on the floor of the jar, and they'd just go still. So, and that happened at about 4 or 5 p.m. every day. So I would ended up attaching a chopstick to my bubbler and using that to stir up the water when they got sad on the bottom, and that kind of revitalized them as well. And I'm not sure if that's something that anybody else has noticed with their babies, but it's something that both my first and second lot did.
I hadn't noticed anything like that, but even when I did the jars, my jars were dead flat bottom. There was no little dip where the wall met the base. Has yours got a little dip? And did they collect in there?
They did a little bit, but because I was stirring, that helped to move stuff around. And in the wild, of course, they're just in rolling waves all day. So they seem to really enjoy being mixed up and spun around a lot like that.
I think that's one of the main differences in our Zoe and Mega to the American ones, because they can ship theirs for a day or 2 days or whatever. If ours stay in still water for half an hour or so, they will die, and they will die that quickly. So ours tend to need totally moving water all the time. And that's why we are currently looking at sharing Zoe, but we're going to have to do something with a battery-operated bubbler system in the container. Otherwise, they will just not survive.
Yeah.
From myself to Corina, and Corina only lives, an hour and a half away from me. They wouldn't survive that. So that's an issue we're working on at the moment. Hopefully we'll come up with some solutions this season. Jill, to answer that question, I didn't ever put any sand in my breeding, in my raising things of any sort. However, I did have sand in the bottom of my saltwater pool, and they did survive to me. I left like half a dozen in there. Some were accidental, some were deliberate, and they got to Mega in there with the sand and the rock, and I'd taken the filter out and I had a bubbler in it. So they did get to Mega, but they didn't go any further. But the first time I did it, I actually didn't realise I'd left any, and they probably died because they starved because I didn't realise there were any in there. I had much of a similar start to Corina. I woke up one morning after having changed my salt water probably 3 or 4 days before. I woke up and I looked at the tank and I thought, yuck. There's all this sludgy stuff in there. And then I was going to change it. I sort of went and had breakfast or whatever, and then I came back and I had a better look and I went, and I rang Natalie in South Australia, and she's half an hour before me, and it was still only 8 o'clock my time or something. And I rang Natalie and I said, help, I've got babies. And that was my introduction to breeding. I did a whole pile of things not right. I had issues there with that. I did get some to land, but they didn't survive. But my next lot I did. But it can be done. And this is what we're saying here in Australia, because we don't have many people like myself who've built a cryosol. So we are encouraging people to say it can be done with jars and a fish tank and an aquarium heater. That is, that's all you need.
Yeah.
I put my bar. I got there were $3 or something or other from the $2 shop, and I got 3 or 4, and they hold about 3 litres. Put them in a larger but still small fish tank, which had fresh water in it, which I heated, which helped to heat the water. Only problem with that was at some stage or other I was taking one jar out to do something and I hit it on another jar. That jar broke, and because it went into the fresh water, I lost, and the fresh water got into that jar because it broke below the water. Lost that whole jar, that one. And I went, oh, no.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I wasn't able to, I didn't have a second tank to put the jar into. So what I did is I got the Craboo's little tiny square heater and I stuck that to the side of the jar, and that kept it at the perfect temperature. And I think that little heater that I had was faulty because it doesn't really work great, but it was perfect for the babies last year. But this year I'll have a better setup.
If you like, the next time.
I've got it now, but I didn't at the time. Yeah, and on the sand in the jar, I didn't put any sand in the jar. I only put shells in once they turned mega, and once they started taking the shells, I put a little plant in there, and I lowered the water level so that they could climb up the plant. And once they climbed up the plant, that's when I was sort of picking them up with tweezers and counting. That's when I started counting, because I was putting them in the transition tank. And so that's when I counted 100, because I had 100 actually crawl out of the water.
Wow.
But then once they went over to the transition tank, I did lose about 50% of them.
How long did this take you?
2 weeks. And that is another point. We are so lucky here in Australia that we only have Zoe for 2 weeks, and then they crawl out of the water and it's all done. Whereas they have to do these multiple water changes every day for a whole month, I think it is.
40 days.
Yeah, 40. Oh, man. We do have it easy here.
we do, except that because there is so little time between Zoe 2 and Mega, like there's between the stage 2 and Mega, there's only 2 days. It's really intense, and you have to, quite often you're cleaning sheds out for 4 days straight, because some aren't quite as, on schedule as the others. So you're still cleaning the 1 to 2 sheds out, and you've got stage 2 sheds coming as well. And so it is a lot more intense. But you can do it because it's only 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got here, I went from Zoe on January 29th to Mega on February 3rd. Like it happened really fast.
Wow.
Um,
Jeez, you have to like literally have everything before it happens.
Yeah, if
Because
you haven't got Mega by day 6 or 7, you probably won't get them,
yeah.
is what we found.
how did you get everything in time? Like all the shells
Me?
and
No,
I mean,
I actually got my local pet store. It's an independently run pet store. They had this giant bag of shell grit.
Oh,
So I
good.
sat up late at night, going through the shell grit looking for tiny perfect shells.
Wow. That's awesome.
So I kind of did that as soon as I got the Zoe. So I was
Okay.
doing that. So I had a collection of shells by the time they went Mega.
Well,
But
good.
it was pretty quick turnover.
I have a local beach here, which is only half an hour from me, just about at the most easterly point in Australia for those of you in America. And it's called Shelley Beach, and it actually has quite a lot of those tiny, tiny, weeny little, I call them ice cream cone shells. You know, they're pink and brown and white and gold and all sorts of colours. And I went down there and I sat on the sand and sifted through, and I quite quickly got 40 or 50 shells, but I needed hundreds.
Yeah.
But this is going to take me forever. So again, I went and got some shell grit and picked through that as well. But the coloured shells from the beach were much more popular than dried. Well, see, the ones in shell grit are worn and they're old, and they have probably been processed in some way. And and even the shells that we thought were perfect probably had, because our eyes aren't, my eyes, old eyes, there might not have been any visible holes, but the shells may well have been more porous because they were more worn. But I do know that but it was so gorgeous seeing all these brightly coloured little shells running around on the bottom of the jars, and then the chrysal. It was really but sourcing those little shells is actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
And
we're lucky we can buy them now.
Yes, and now that we know, see, when I started in 2014 would have been my first attempt. God, that's 10 years ago. Australians were believed not to eat until they got to Mega. So my first couple of lots did not get any food at all in their Zoe stages and until they turned to Mega. I actually probably was the one who disproved that, because I put stuff in after a little while, after talking to various other people. I started putting the marine snow and the green nanochloropsis in, and they did a lot better. And they weren't anywhere near as cannibalistic when they got to Mega. They weren't, obviously, the first couple of times I did it, they were starving when they got to Mega, and then they had the claws, and they could actually rip. What I found is they ripped the Zoe who was still there, the stage 2 Zoe. They just had their bellies ripped out, and they provided the protein that they hadn't been getting for the first week of their lives, because no, they don't eat when they're Zoe. They don't eat. Okay, right, fine. That's good. That'll give me a bit more time to get some stuff together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now we know differently, and I think they're doing better. Except for this year. Oh, no, not this year. Last season, Corina was the only one that we know of in Australia that actually had success.
And Cheryl.
I had 3. Oh, Cheryl too. I had 3 spawns, lost them all at various stages for who knows what reason. and every person, and I have heard that happened all around the world last breeding season. So what it was, who knows?
And that's what led me to start looking at alternatives, and that's why I was thinking about the tides and the rolling waves and how to replicate that, and that I think is what helped in the end, because we were finding that when they went mega, they were malformed, weren't they?
Or they wouldn't shed properly.
Yeah. So helping them to shed is what I was sort of focusing on to get them to that next stage.
Yeah, I always turn my bubblers up.
Yeah.
From stage 2 to mega, and then once they're mega, because I've got a double cryocell, I actually can take the mega out and put them in the left hands in one side, and on that I've got a tap so I can turn the pressure down so the flow in there is less, so they can actually get to the bottom, get shells, and catch their food. Whereas on the other side, I keep the pressure up so they're moving much more quickly, and that has actually worked quite well.
So once, sorry, where were we?
Do we want to answer Vazuka's question just quickly?
Is there a big adoption? We're going to get, that is our next subject. So,
do they have them in shops?
Stick around.
Yes. Because, we also have to, once we've bred these crabs, find homes for them. So that's going to be the next big thing, because you haven't had to do that yet, have you, Sue?
No, I've only had a few which I've managed to keep, and then the large lot, when I had 80 or something or other, I was starting to think I need to look at getting these crabs, but again it was the shipping that was causing me issues. But then I had the sub flood, and so I didn't have to bother about it anymore.
Yeah,
that's terrible, but no. But I do think the shop that we've got nearby us may be interested, sort of like a Josh's Frogs type thing. I have approached them, but I haven't heard back yet. But yes, we do have crabs for purchase in shops, in pet shops. We are fortunate in that we don't, as far as I know, have crabs available in beach shops and stuff like that, because we don't tend to have beach souvenir type shops here anyway. So we don't have that, and we don't tend to have crab races and that sort of stuff. Having said that, though, Corina said that that's how she got her crabs. I haven't heard of them anywhere except in the Northern Territory. And Northern Territory crabs are found up there in the wild, and I suspect that, and the Northern Territorians are a little bit more bushy, shall we say, a little bit wilder people. But I haven't heard of any stuff like that happening elsewhere in Australia. However, I may be wrong.
There was a post made in one of our groups, someone bringing it to our attention that there was a crab race going on at some local pub somewhere. I'm not sure where
it's mine. I'm working on them.
Oh, was it you that posted it, Corina?
Maybe.
It was just last summer.
Yeah. Oh no, this is one I found the other day, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's still happening. So hopefully we can put an end to that. We need all the help we can get.
It's definitely less common here, but it happens.
Has CrabCon influenced you to continue breeding crabs? I think having the bobs has made me want to do it again. I really enjoy having the little baby crabs. They are so sweet, and like they are a big part of our family now. They live in my kitchen, so they're in the busiest part of the house. So we're trying to see if they can be tamed, or at least a little less skittish than a wild caught crab. But CrabCon is definitely a big influence as well, and always looking up to people like Sue and Mary and Dr. Tudge as well. We are surrounded by so much information. It's really cool.
I have literally got my transition tank, which here in Australia, transition tanks are different to what they call transition tanks in the States, because ours basically come out of the water and they go to land. They don't sort of come out of the water, go back, come out of the water, go back, come out of the water. So they don't need a big lot of water and the sand. So basically once they come out of the water, they go into a tank, mainly sand. It has got deep salt water and a shallower freshwater pool, and that's where my babies stay until, depending on how many of them there are, until they get sort of 12 months or so older. Because I had so many last time, I had to put them into a bigger tank. But it is literally right there when I'm sitting on my lap. It's sitting there, and I just look over and go, "Oh, hello." I just take my phone and go.
Yep.
I've got so many photos of the babies. And they are so cute and gorgeous and really, really active.
Yeah. And when I was taking them out of the transition tank as well, I would have like the ramp coming out of their water dish. So I would put them right in the middle of that ramp where they can go downwards towards the water or back up towards, and that's what I always do every time I move them. I always put them right in the middle, so that. And I actually have on video, because they move so slowly, I did a lot of time-lapse videos of them crawling out the water, and on the 18th, so I've got this all written down here. On the 18th, I've got videos of naked crabs coming out the water and running around the tank and then going back in.
Oh, doesn't that do you? I mean, you come out of the water without shells and you go, back in there, back in there.
Get back in there. Yeah. And not only that, we have an issue of the mega just thinking that they're fish and not turning into crab at all as well. Because once February 29th came around, like exactly 1 month to the date, that is when I got my second spawning. So I had to get the remaining mega out of there, and I put them in the transition tank in the water. No idea if they walked out or not.
I think a lot of that has to do with the temperature. That was the issue I had with my very first spawn. I had my little water pools in my transition tank. They were up against the heat mat, and they actually got way too hot. The water in the pools got way too hot, and the mega morphed into crabs while they were still in the water, and then they drowned. And that's purely an issue because the water was too hot, so their stages and their transitions happen much more quickly. So that's why it's really important to keep a really close eye on the water temperature in the cryocell or in the jars to make sure that they are not getting too hot. And if it's too cold, if the water, and it's only fractions of degrees, really, you've really got to keep it at the 28 degrees. If it goes down to 26, it takes them longer. And if it gets up to 30, they do it too fast, and then they haven't developed the internal structures, I guess. But then they do the external morph, and they can't survive. Mm-hmm. So I think from now on, I will be really, really particular about keeping a really close eye on the temperature. I had one spawn in August one year, and it was freezing cold because that's our winter. And I could not keep the water warm enough, so I ended up putting them in a smaller jar, and I wrapped a sun shield around that and over the top to try and keep the heat in, but they still didn't survive because it was just the air was too cold. I could not keep the water constantly and still do the water changes and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, as I said, I had a spawn. It was August. I mean, that's way too early in the year.
Yeah.
Don't know what they were up to.
So now we have to start watching out from August. So from next month.
I don't think
that's a lot earlier.
Survivable.
Yeah.
Unless you've got really warm house. See, mine are in the laundry, which I don't have insulation in the ceiling, and they're up against, there's like a big window to let the light and stuff in, and that also obviously lets the cold come through, and because it was winter, the house was all shut up. So I think another thing was there wasn't enough oxygen, and I think they ended up with carbon dioxide buildup in the water. Because even though I had a bubbler, I was only getting it from the room, and the room was small and closed up, and I don't think there was enough oxygen getting in. I mean, I didn't notice when I walked in, I didn't go or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think that was an issue as well as the temperature.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also going to mention that I lost my second lot. My first lot I called the Bobs. The second lot I called Mates, and they got 3 mates out of that second lot because on the day they all turned mega, and I like to call this Carnage Day because they all start eating each other. I was in surgery. Yeah. So they happened to do that the same day I went into surgery. So I was not able to do the multiple changes. So it is so, so important that the day they turn mega, you are home and you are keeping an eye on that water constantly. It changes from hour to hour.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, that is, we've gone a bit over time, but that is for breeding covered for now, but that does lead us on to adoption and finding new homes for all these babies and poor crabs who have come from bad homes as well. We've seen an increase in hermit crab adoption in the last year for sure, and we've had a lot of adoption groups popping up all over the place too. But Kiara, this is your expertise. So I'll get you to take it away. Sorry.
I will just quickly show my tank to Rebecca as she's asked. I'm not sure if you can see any Hermies in there, but yes.
It's so beautiful.
Thank you. So I have been rescuing since November last year. I started, I only started Hermes. I got my first 4 Hermes, I think it was September, maybe October even, and then started the rescue. I've got a 4-foot tank, and we follow about 20 litres per rescue crab, but I've got super deep substrate and everything like that, deep pools, and I always keep an eye just in case for overcrowding, but I've never really got that many crabs in the tank anyways. At the moment I've got 4 in the 4-foot tank, and it fits about 6, I think. With adoptions, they go through a, adoption kind of application. So they have to, show us proof that they've done their research and their tank's all set up properly. We'll adopt out up to 3 hours away, sometimes a little bit over, maybe 3.5 hours. And I'm always driving for
lots of driving.
Always. I actually picked up some rescues. I was down the coast earlier this week, which is about 3 hours from me. I picked up some rescues there. And it was about like a 5-hour drive home. Where I was on the coast to then driving down the coast to where they were and then coming home. There was road closures and everything. But they were actually surrendered to me. They came from good conditions. So 2 of them went straight to their new home yesterday with one of my lovely adoptees. She lives in Canberra, where I live. And I've been to her house. I help her set up and everything like that. She's lovely. And I kept the big boy. He's in this tank. So yeah, if they've come from good conditions and they're surrendered to us, they can be adopted out straight away. If they're, a marketplace rescue, so we're always looking on Facebook Marketplace and Gumtree, even like buy nothing pages and buy swap sell groups. So if they're, kind of a rescue from there, they will go into the rescue tank for at least 4 weeks or until they molt, to make sure that they've, been able to eat properly, on the right diet. They've had a chance to get in the pools and rehydrate their abdomens, and had a chance to molt if they need to. We also, check for any health issues, check their exoskeletons, their legs, claws, if they've recently surface molted, if they've molted, if they're going to surface molt,
what their diet was,
they're missing limbs, if they've got a massive molt sac and they're about to go down, everything like that. Yeah, if they have eggs, which would be very, very whatever happen, but we're, everything, but yes, I think, is there any questions about rescue or adoption?
Do you have you ever had to turn somebody down
for adoption? Absolutely, yeah. We're always so we'll say, let them know, hey, unfortunately your application couldn't be approved. These are the reasons why. We're more than happy to help you make these changes so that you can adopt from us.
I think that's a big part of it, isn't it? Helping people to make the changes so that they can. That's got to be a massive part.
Absolutely, yeah. People.
One of the questions was, is there a big adoption in Australia?
Yeah.
That's one of the questions.
I think it's definitely getting bigger. I think more and more people, because rescues have only really just started becoming a thing since November last year. I think there was another one that was started before that, I think. But yeah, it's only recently become a thing, rescue and adoption here. So it's definitely getting bigger as people learn about, you know, the pet store trade and how horrible it is that they're being stolen from the wild, and, you know, we're saving them and giving them a second chance. I think the biggest thing is getting more rescue locations, you know, everywhere around Australia, so that everyone has the opportunity to adopt rather than shop.
Yeah, and a lot of people are keeping an eye out on Facebook Marketplace and come.
Yeah, no, the Aussie community is awesome. There's always people, you know, even if they're not rescuers themselves, they're always looking and, you know, sending it to people or tagging people and letting them know, hey, I just saw this. You know, are you close?
We had to create a sticky because there were so many people reposting those Facebook ads. It's like, just put them all in one place, because there's so many of them on Marketplace at the moment. So
I see a lot of their hermit crab stuff that they left behind, but no hermit crabs, and I'm like, the empty shells with the color gels. I'm like, oh no.
It's quite a lot.
Do we have any other questions? Is there anyone else have any questions?
I do want to add, after out of all of the rescues that I have done, only one rescue mission was in Canberra.
Wow.
Have driven, like, I'll drive up to Sydney, which is 3 hours from me. I had one of our group members help me transport some Hermies from North Sydney down to South Sydney to me.
Wow.
Driving to the coast and, all of the other places. And I've had only 2 people from Canberra adopt from me. The rest, you know, I've met them halfway to the coast or to Sydney or Wollongong or, you know, Wagga Wagga and heaps of places.
Doesn't sound real, I suppose, to maybe Americans of Wagga Wagga.
All places around 3 hours away from me.
Can you put photos in the chat? I don't think you can.
No,
you can't.
It's hard to see.
Can't get any closer to my tank because my computer is desktop. I do have here, I've got a 6.5 litre fresh pool that's got jam-packed full of plants and stuff. Over there is a 7 litre saltwater pool. Up here, I've created this expanding foam. I've created basically a cave, which I've put a grid on top, and that's where I put their food because it's next to a heat mat on the end. Because I've got big crabs, I've got large chunks of, this is grapevine, which apparently they absolutely love eating. So if you know anyone who's trimming or pruning grapevines, see if you can grab it. I've got quite a few chunks of grapevine and a big shell shop there. And then this is the, I was mentioning earlier,
Oh, your moss.
That's the moss.
And
they've totally removed that bit. And it's just dirt. It's actually I pulled it out of the gutter of my roof. And, well, a friend did who's tall. This bit's actually dried out a bit, and the soil is quite damp. Oh, look.
So do they eat it?
There's a crab poo in there. Surprise. That's just out of the gutter. off my roof, and it's all the leaf litter off the native trees and stuff that overhang. But they have been in there, and that bit was actually tipped up like that, and so they were getting into the dirt. So I'll have to spray that actually before I put it back in. So that's basically a tool. And because my pools are so big, I've actually made stands with
the pipes,
25 mil white plumbing pipe. You have the floor uprights and then a 3-way join on each upright, and then put the 4 bits on. That goes right to the bottom, because that pool, as I said, holds 6.5 litres, which means that pool water plus the glass is probably about 8 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes right to the bottom of the tank. I actually also have this, which
Oh yes, for at night time.
I just got it from a hardware store junk thing, and it's actually got a lip on it. So it hangs nicely on the edge of the tank, or it hangs down there in the daytime. It hangs down there on the ledge of the...
That's great.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And I put a blanket on top overnight as well.
For anyone who's just joined, it is 9 a.m. here in Australia. So we're having a pajama party and wearing our hoodies. You got hot. Because it's the middle of winter as well. So yeah. But that's how I get plants into my crab habitat. These are seedlings.
PVC piping for plumbing.
Yeah. And I just cut a hole out of my stand and sit that in. And it's not deep enough for them to burrow into. This is all worm castings too. It's not actual dirt, so they can eat the entire thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just put that whole container in.
That whole container in. I just cut a hole in my stand, and yeah, I've got this is bok choy and this is parsley. So they're just seedlings from the nursery.
Cool.
Amazing.
I have
capsicum seed, bell peppers for the Americans.
Yeah. I just buy whatever crab safe foods that I can find growing. Yeah, crab safe plant.
Why do you take it out of the little black plastic things that seedlings often come in? Is that not strong enough?
No, what I do is I take it out and I get all the soil off that comes with it, and make sure I wash the plants really, really well before I put them into crab safe stuff. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. But and it's really important to do that because you don't know what pesticides and stuff are on there. And I have a few of those little containers going on my windowsill, so I just swap them out.
That's awesome. Did they die? Do they last in there?
No, they don't. They destroy them. I just put that in this morning, so it looked nice for the video.
Do they just trample them?
They trample and they eat. Yeah, bit of both. And they just sit in there as well. They just hang out.
They love
it. Looks like they're sitting in a little jungle.
That's what mine have been doing in the moss. There was 2 of them in there. Well, because they're so big, that was sort of Monster was in there, and somebody else was sort of trying to get in as well, but Monster was taking up all of the space. I mean, this is the little ball I was telling you about. Monster is bigger than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah, my Hermie's about that size. The size of the beast. This is a rescue, but I decided to keep him.
I keep so many of my rescues too.
So old. Well, I've got 3 rescues at the moment that I've had since February, and nobody's wanted them.
Yeah.
And one of them is nearly the same size as Monster. So that's why he is staying in that tank, because I don't want two large males in here
Oh, yeah.
arguing about the girls.
Have you experienced that a lot, Sue, before?
No, because Monster's really the only. There was Monster and his brother, and they were the only two males I had. All the rest were females. And Monster, even though they were the same spawn, they had exactly the same conditions, Monster was about half as big again as his brother. So he was always the dominant male. Not that he is at all aggressive or anything, but he was bigger. I mean, and Choco would come over, mating time, Choco would come over and Monster would just go wait, and he'd sort of flick him with a leg, and poor old Choco will go and roll away and go, okay, fine, I haven't got a chance. But he's never, ever aggressive. And unfortunately, Choco hasn't come back up from a molt for nearly 2 years, so I suspect he is no longer.
Yeah. Well, we have hit an hour and a half, so I think we should probably let all these people go to bed.
If we've got until
There's no questions,
time, which is
scary.
But
Are there any more questions that you guys have for us about breeding, adoptions, crab care in Australia? Yes. I currently have 50 baby crabs that were born in January. So I can't. Yeah.
Oh.
I have one at the moment, 7.5-year-old captive bred. I did have multiple second generation, his children. I have 2 in this tank and 2 tinier ones in my normal baby tank that were given to me because the lady had too many, that were actually collected from the wild in Darwin. The 2 bigger ones are in here, but the other 2 are still only quite tiny, so I've kept them separate. They are still really juveniles, and I don't want to put them in the big tank with these big guys. Not that I think they will come to any harm, but they're safer in the big tank with the littler pools and that sort of stuff.
You can see videos of my babies on TikTok. I'm on there as Pixarina, Pixarina, and they're smaller than this at the moment.
Great example.
I don't take them out of the tank because I just don't want to handle them too much. But I do handle them inside the tank. I just don't bring them out of the tank very much, just because they're so little.
Sorry, can one of you ladies read out what people have said after I put my comment in there about the 11-litre fish tank pools, because I can't see anything.
Sorry. Okay. Tanya was asking me how big the babies are.
Yeah.
And then we've got, what advice would you give to someone that wants to captive breed hermits?
I said give it a go.
Prepare.
Try, experiment as well. Read as much as you can. And my biggest piece of advice is they're not as weak as you think they are. They're quite strong little things.
They are tougher than you realise. You think because they're so tiny, but they're actually, hate to say this, but they are actually crunchy. Even when they're tiny, they are actually hard. I was thinking they were soft, gooey sort of type things, but actually they are quite hard. Give it a go. Even if you don't succeed the first time, you will have learnt stuff and you will decide whether you are prepared, capable, willing to give it another go. The second go will probably go better. And there are a heap of people all over the world now who are more than happy to help. If you need assistance, sing out to any one of us. I mean, as Aussies, we aren't going to be able to help other people as much with the specifics because, as we said earlier, ours are in the water for 14 days. 18 basically max. So our methods work well for us. But as I said, I helped Mary when she first started. She has now taken it and gone ahead in leaps and bounds. Ooh, beauty. My contribution is I got her started. Yes. And now we have a whole pile more people in Australia who are giving it a go. And I think we are getting more people who have got babies because we have better conditions that the crabs are living in.
Yeah.
So
I hope that this year we break those records and it just gets better every year.
yes.
I'm excited to see how many spawns we have this summer.
So what has stopped you, Randy? You said you wanted to breed since last CrabCon. You've had a season. Did you not get any babies? Or you didn't feel able, ready to do it?
That would explain.
Crazy. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's a much, much more important job.
Oh, sweet.
So you won't be able to have a go this season either because you've got dealing with a toddler.
Do you know what? So if I was to do this again, I think I would have the salt water prepared in advance, like big buckets of it. Like, was it you that was telling me to do that?
Yeah, I make 20 litres at a time.
Yeah.
And I keep it actually in a white Bunnings bucket that's got a lid. Bunnings is a hardware shop here. White Bunnings bucket with a lid, and it's got a filter in it that just keeps it aerated.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
It doesn't get light in it, so nothing will grow. And because it keeps the bubbler is in it, not the bubbler, the filter's in it, it keeps it aerated. So it stays fine.
Tonya asked, what are bobs and mates? That's a really good question. Because I had 2 spawnings that were successful, I called the first one bobs because they were just bobbing around in the water when I found them. And the second ones I just called mates because they're going to be the mates of the bobs. So that's just how I tell them apart. And
bobs and mates are collective names for Corina's
babies. And hopefully when they eventually go to their homes, they will use Bob as their surname. I don't know. A girl can dream. But maybe it's just sort of a way to keep track of the different spawnings. So we give them all different names. And another breeder we have here in Australia, she's got more than me at the moment. So she's doing really, really well. And she calls hers the Tifsus because she's named them after Sue and Tiffany, who are big people here in Australia for crabs. So,
I didn't realise she had more.
Yeah, she's got 57.
Bobs.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
She got 7 more. So she's doing really good. Yeah.
And they're all roughly the same age, though. They'll all be ready roughly for adoption at about the same time. So there'll be a mass of adoptees.
Good thing she's in another state, so that helps.
It does.
Yeah.
Because I can't see me getting any that I have I can't see me getting them much further than southern Queensland or basically anywhere coastal in New South Wales.
Yeah.
Because of distances and stuff. Unless, of course, I go for a drive. I was going to take some babies down to Natalie, who is my mentor, and she lives in South Australia. I was going to actually physically do the drive and take them that far.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah.
You can take us some bobs if you want.
Yeah, go meet up.
I drove to Adelaide in February, and it's too far to drive.
Yeah.
It's too far to drive.
Totally get it.
I imagine.
Yeah, I could talk about those bobs all day. There's so much to tell you about them.
Kyara's still here. She's still got issues.
And I've found just this morning, I put some pictures up yesterday of a bob in the bottom of the tank molting. Well, this morning he's almost finished eating all his molts, and there are two more like really close by him. So they're all molting together as well.
Oh.
And then when they come up and they pile up by the heater as well, they're always like on top of each other. They really like being close together, which is so very different from the bigger crabs who just don't want to be near each other.
Yeah. Well, they're going to stop upbringing, hey?
Yeah, I found my babies all went up high and near the heater, yes.
Yeah.
They
do love to climb.
Do you find that the captive bred Hermes who are more, how do I say it, less scared?
Well, I was only, I don't, the little ones they'd react just as normally. Monster, I was just saying the other day, like these lids aren't super tight. They're, particularly that side, you can get them off really easily. And with Monster being the size he is, I am quite sure he would be able to lift those lids if he really wanted to and get out. He has never even attempted to escape, never even looked like it. I mean, he has climbed up along the ledge along the top here and sort of done his monkey impression, climbing along hanging upside down. But it's never been any time where I have thought that he was likely to escape. And as I say, I'm sure he could, because they are amazingly strong for size. Little guys, however, I've had to childproof my tank because it had, the corner bits, but even the lid didn't seal quite enough. And when they're only like
so small,
they can get out tiny little gaps. So what I do is the foam seal stuff that you put around windows and doors to stop the draft getting in. However, the ones that I got from Darwin, the captive
little ones,
the wild caught ones, they ripped that sealant stuff to pieces. They have literally shredded it, I think, trying to get out, because they can't eat, and it's just that foam, and they have literally shredded it. I'm going to have to totally replace it when I get the next lot of babies, because they've taken it back in a lot of spaces to the sticky layer that stuck it onto the glass in the first place. Whereas the babies didn't do that, but they didn't know any different. That was all they had known. Whereas the wild ones, they have known bigger expanses.
I think I've noticed that the baby bobs are a lot more friendlier than my wild caught crabs. when I was changing their tank recently, giving it a clean out. So I put them back into a transition tank. And as I was doing that, I was putting them on the palm of my hand and then letting them crawl off my hand naturally. I'm not just like popping them in there. And so some of them will hang around on my hand and I will have to pick them up and put them back. They just don't want to get off my hand, I think, because it's warm or whatever it is. But some of them will just run away straight away. And some of them will cling on with their little tiny claws and try and bite me. So
and they actually do hurt, even though they're tiny. What I found is they tended to pick the cuticle around your fingernails.
I got like on the inside of my finger. One just hung on for a good 10 minutes and I just sat there waiting for him to stop. But,
Randy's asked a question: how many hours a day would you say you spend changing water, feeding, etc.?
Great question.
That depends on the day. Day 1, 2, 3.
On average, what do you reckon?
Basically, you do a water change. Well, day 1, 2, and 3, I basically do 1 water change a day. Day 4. No, day 5. No, hang on. What day is shed day? But on shed days, you have to spend many hours sucking out all the sheds, and you have to spend quite a lot of time doing more water changes. And each time you do a water change, you've got to avoid sucking the Zoe out.
Yes.
Or if you do, what I do is I try and avoid it, but I don't avoid it totally. And they go in the wastewater I put into a clear plastic jug. I then use a light on one side of the jug to see the critters that I've sucked up, and I will then use a pipette and put them back into the jars or the cryocell. That takes a long time. But if you don't do that, you lose a lot of Zoe, or you waste a lot of time trying to avoid them. So on shed days, it's intensive and it's frequent. Other days, it's sort of once, maybe twice a day. So it's really hard to sort of say.
Yeah.
Would you ladies agree?
Yeah, I think the first few days I was doing twice a day, morning and evening, just doing a half water change. As they do start to shed, I was doing 3, sometimes 4 times a day, similar to you. And I'm so glad you pointed this out to me, Sue, like putting the chopstick on the pipe helps.
I don't
so
use
that you can actually, or just to sort of keep it still, and then you can actually point it where you want it to go. I normally have mesh over the end of this, and as I'm sucking them up, I'm shaking it as well, because they get stuck on the mesh, and then shaking them like that is also helping them to shed that shell too. So it looks quite brutal, but they love it.
I actually use a hard plastic.
Straw. Yeah.
Because it doesn't quite match, I had to get it just from Bunnings. I just got a joiner piece. It won't go into the airline.
Zip tied.
Yeah, but the chopstick does the same thing, but I use the straw in the end. And this, I'm being careful because this has actually still got water in it from when I used it to empty out the bottle the other day. And I just just put a rubber band around it, and then I hook it over the tap in the sink.
Oh yeah.
And if you keep water in it, you don't have to suck it, and so therefore you don't get a mouthful of salty water every time. It stays like that, and it just hooks over the tap in the laundry tub.
Oh wow. It's awesome.
But Randy, yeah, just to finish that one, when they do go mega, that is the day that you need to be changing the water a whole lot more. It's almost like having a newborn. Sometimes it's like every 2 hours you're changing that water, and you're just sifting through the wastewater to make sure you're not picked any up as well. So it is very time consuming.
Like babies, they eat and poop.
Eat and poop, and they are starving.
Feel like ammonia in the water, and yeah,
and they eat each other. Yes, and no sleep. Yep, I was
what's that?
staying up to midnight some
Overrated.
nights, changing water at midnight. So, yeah,
And then again,
it's
at
a lot of
5
work. Yes,
You should be used to it.
Yep, you're in a good position to do this. A stay-at-home mom is perfect. Yeah.
Supposedly there are 10 people still here.
Does anyone have any more questions? Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for everyone.
Somebody's put
and
on.
yeah, the explosions. Thank you for those. Whoever's doing it. Well, I guess we might. Yeah,
Awesome.
I think we might wrap it up and say goodbye. But thank you for watching. I hope we answered some questions or you found it informative.
Corina and I have been up since 5 a.m.
Yes, we can get our day started now.
Dr. Tudge. And
Have some
Corina,
breakfast.
you noticed you were quoted.
Yes, he used my video in his talk.
That Bob's or mates?
That was the mates, I believe. Yeah.
Mates.
No, that was the Bob's, actually. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Hi from Georgia. Aww. Hi from
Hello.
Queensland, Australia.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well,
we're all from the East
guys.
Coast, aren't we, Kiara? Yeah, we're all from the East Coast of Australia.
Aww.
Good night, everyone.
I still can't see comments, so if there's anything important, let me know.
Oh, just people are saying
thank you,
and goodbye. And we will hopefully see you guys next year.
Yeah, hopefully. That'll be awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye, CrabCon.